Alright guys, this is Matt here on the Vinyl Head UK channel, and I've got another vinyl appreciation video for all of you guys. So today I have a band. I've already covered the debut record by this band on the channel already, and now I've got another record of theirs, their second record. I'm following this through chronologically, it seems. I didn't mean to do it like that. It just so happened that I found their debut album on Discogs going for a good price, went and bought it, and then it just so happened I found their second album on Discogs at a good price and went and got that one. Maybe we'll carry along this one chronologically. Who knows? I'll see what's out there and play it by ear a little bit. But second album, an album that kind of divides some of the fan base. But it's an album by arguably one of the, if not the biggest metal bands, probably alongside Metallica, and a staple of the new wave of British heavy metal. And that band, of course, is Iron Maiden. And if I'm speaking about their second release, I'm sure you know what it is. And if you don't, here it is. It's Killers by Iron Maiden. Look at that artwork. How good is that artwork with Eddie right there? It's so iconic. Flip it over, let you see that one there. How good's that? Doesn't that look amazing? So as I say, this is the second record by the band. This was released in 1981. But this it is a 2014 European remastered reissue, and it was put out by Parlophone. I picked this one up brand new. As you can see, the condition is really nice. There's no dinks, there's no scratches, no rips. Yeah, it's in really good condition, brand new. Really happy with that. And yeah, as I say, it's one of those that splits people a little bit. It's the first album with Martin Birch at the helm, producing it. Martin Birch went on to produce 8 Iron Maiden records, I believe, up until Fear of the Dark in '92. So a good sort of 10-year span and 8 records. Martin Birch, very, very famous producer from back in the 80s and 70s as well. So Fleetwood Mac, Rainbow, Deep Purple, Whitesnake, obviously Iron Maiden. Some huge bands that he put his sound on. For this, it means the production, I think, is a little bit more polished. It's a little cleaner. Maybe a little overproduced, some might say. I don't have a huge problem with that. Obviously, the debut record, Iron Maiden, was very raw, very edgy. It drew a lot from the punk influence, I think. So it definitely had this dirtier, rawer, edgier sound. Whereas I think Killers is definitely a little bit more polished, a little bit cleaner sounding, but, big but, it still has those punky elements to it. It still has that influence from the punk scene. We saw a little bit of a lineup change on this one. So the lineup itself, of course, we had Paul Di'Anno once again on vocals. This was his second and last recording with Iron Maiden. We had Dave Murray once again on guitars. We had Adrian Smith come in on guitars for this one. Adrian Smith, of course, he left Iron Maiden later on, but then came back a bit like Bruce and still with the band now. Steve Harris on bass, and then Clive Burr on drums, one of the 3 albums that Clive Burr played on, who I think sounds phenomenal on this album. His drumming is, I think, very underrated in general, but on this record sounds phenomenal. Of course, we had Dennis Stratton on guitar for the debut record. He actually got fired due to the old term of musical difference. He was listening to a lot of softer stuff like the Eagles, for example, which wasn't really going along with Iron Maiden's sound. You know, was that hard, metallic, new wave sound that they were creating. And listening to bands like the Eagles and other sort of softer rock bands, you're not going to get that style that I think Steve Harris and Iron Maiden were really looking for. He was often caught listening to this music by management or other band members and criticised and told, don't listen to that stuff, stop listening to that. You know, listen to these other new wave of British heavy metal bands. Inspire yourself, you know. This is the sound we're going for. This is the sound that we want. And ultimately, he came away from the band. He was fired. And that's where Adrian Smith came in. The duo that many people regard as one of the best sort of iconic duo guitar players, with Adrian Smith and Dave Murray. You hear that melodic side to them. You hear these beautiful leads and these beautiful solos. You know, we were hearing early sounds of what Iron Maiden became on this record. We heard it a bit on the debut record when we hear stuff like Phantom of the Opera. You know, we were going into that proggy, gallopy style that we hear from Iron Maiden now. We were hearing those leads, those solos, but I think you hear it more. It's a bit more developed. It's a bit more of a mature sound as such on Killers. Let's have a look, as we always do, at this amazing, beautiful artwork. As I say, it's very iconic. All the Maiden covers are pretty iconic. We'll come on to Number of the Beast, I'm sure, very shortly, but that's very iconic as well. But it's that lovely big red Iron Maiden logo right at the top. I keep my vinyl at the moment in a case, like this kind of flight case. So when I scroll through, I see the top of a record as I'm searching through my records. And obviously, that big red Iron Maiden jumps right out at you and makes me want to just pick it up and play it, regardless of whatever I'm trying to find. As soon as that catches my eye, you're kind of drawn in. Killers, and then of course Eddie, iconic Eddie. What's he doing here? He has an axe. He stood in front of some buildings. He's looking even more menacing than he did on Iron Maiden. He's got some hands clawing up. He looks like he's just murdered someone. The blood is coming off the axe. Someone's crawling up him to beg for forgiveness. But Eddie just looks enraged. I love the artwork on Iron Maiden records. On the back, it's kind of a little bit similar to the last record. It's got that kind of hard to see live picture that you can see there of a band playing, very 80s style live shot where you can't really see all that much what's going on. You definitely can't see Clive Burr. He seems to be in the middle of a lot of smoke produced by Eddie there. Track listing, and then little shots of each band member, and then Martin Birch down the bottom there, very rightfully so. He gets a little picture considering all that he's done for music and his production. Paper sleeve, nice and black. I quite like these black paper sleeves, these inner sleeves. I think they look quite cool. I prefer them to the white ones. And then this is 180 gram. Nice big chunky solid record. Their side one. So it's similar to Iron Maiden with the logo down the side. It's pretty much identical to the Iron Maiden record itself in how it looks, with that label in the centre there. Side 2 is exactly the same, nothing different there. Say nice 180. Being so it's new, No scratches, no surface damage, nothing like that. So we're all good in the metal hood. And then we have our track listing. Let me slide this back so I don't knock it. I don't want to damage it. As I say, it's in good nick. I don't want to go and do anything to it. So we have, it doesn't break up the first side and the second side, so I'm just going to have a little look. There we go. Just so I can remember what starts side B off. I don't want to get this wrong for you guys. So, side A, side 1, The Ides of March, that nice instrumental opener. Wrathchild, Murders in the Rue Morgue, Another Life, Genghis Khan, and Innocent Exile. Second side, Killers, the title track. Prodigal Son, Purgatory, and Drifter. So that makes up Killers. It's about 39, 40 minutes or so, 20 minutes ish on each side. And so, yeah, I spoke earlier, this kind of divides a lot of fans. Personally, I don't think it's as good as the debut record. Yeah, the production's better, but I don't think the songs are as strong. That first record was littered with amazing tracks from start to finish. Now, a lot of Maiden fans argue that this does the same, but for me, not so much. I'm not a big as fan of Killers as I am Iron Maiden. The best tracks for me are Wrathchild, Murders of the Rue Morgue, and then the title track, Killers. I think Killers is definitely the strong point on side 2 or side B. I think that's a really solid, amazing track. Wrathchild, it's short, but it's sweet. It's quite basic, I guess you could probably say, compared to some Maiden tracks. It's not proggy. It doesn't go off in loads of different directions. But Murders of the Rue Morgue, I think, is my favourite track on this. That does go off in a little bit more direction. You hear that progginess to it. Let's go through a little bit on some of the tracks. So The Ides of March. This is an instrumental opening. This is the only Maiden record with 2 instrumentals. So we've got The Ides of March and then Genghis Khan. But yeah, The Ides of March, it is pretty much a identical track to Thunderburst by Samson. Now, if you're up on your Maiden knowledge, you might know who at the time the Samson vocalist was. He was named Bruce. I think it was either Bruce or Brucey or Brucey Bruce, something like that was his nickname. But we know him as Bruce Dickinson. So this was pre-Iron Maiden. He was with Samson. And yeah, this track is pretty much identical to Thunderburst. It's credited to Steve Harris, and solely Steve Harris on this version, but the Samson version was actually credited to Steve Harris plus the rest of the band, as in Samson, not Maiden. So that's quite interesting. A little fun fact, you know, you like your fun facts. I like giving out fun facts, little snippets of stuff. But it's, I like it as an intro. You know, you hear a lot of intro tracks from metal bands, and it's kind of acoustic-y pieces, and then hits you hard in the face. This is full on, you know, there's no acoustic to it. It's got lovely guitar melodies. We're already hearing what Adrian Smith is bringing into the band, and those lovely dual harmonies and leads with Dave Murray. We're already getting a slice of that, which is exciting to hear. And then we go into Wrathchild with that bass. And there's a lovely bass riff that sits under this track the whole way through. As I say, it's very short. It's 3 minutes or so. I think it says the track lengths on 2:54, so it's not even 3 minutes long, so it's probably one of the shorter Maiden tracks there is when you look at how long some of Maiden's songs are. But it's very bouncy, it's very straight to the point, it's quite simple compared to some other Maiden songs, which do get quite complex and proggy, which is lovely to hear. I love the different directions. It's one of the tracks that Maiden still play regularly. You don't really hear many tracks live off Killers, but Wrathchild they still play to this day, which is great. I love that track. But yeah, that lovely bass, and then we go straight into that guitar lead, and we're off and running. Paul Di'Anno comes in. He still has those punky vocals, I think. As I say, there is a punky element to this record still. You can hear the influences. And, you know, I think he, as much as he does the big, like, sort of Bruce-style vocal as well, you still have that dirty, punky edge to his vocals as well. Yes, I believe Bruce is the better singer. I prefer Bruce's style of singing. But there is some really nice vocal lines and delivery from Di'Anno. This, of course, was his last record with the band. Following this, I think, you know, there was a lot of speculation anyway. His drink and drug abuse, and, you know, his voice was going, he was constantly partying. I think the band tried to play it down and said all was fine, but obviously then he got fired. I think they were already starting to audition, or look at least, at a replacement, and thankfully Bruce they found, and in he came, and the rest is history. You know, we'll come on to Number of a Beast. We all know about how good that record is. But yeah, as I say, there is some really nice vocals on this from Di'Anno. We have some, as I say, I mean, I'm not going to go track by track on this one, but, you know, overall, there are some lovely guitar leads. As I say, we really get spoilt by getting treated early to what Dave Murray and Adrian Smith can do. There's some really lovely melodic solos on this. There's some great riffs. There's some really nice speed metal tracks, some early speed metal, which probably influenced a lot of the power metal guys, for example. There's a ballady type track with Prodigal Son, you know, just stepping off the gas a little bit. But yeah, I can see why it divides fans. I definitely can. I don't think it's as strong as Maiden, the self-titled Iron Maiden. It's nowhere near Number of a Beast. And, you know, following records, Power Slave, for example, and Sensor and whatever. Peace of Mind, another one. But it's still pretty solid, and it still played a very influential and pivotal role in the new wave of British heavy metal. It definitely went on to inspire a lot of people. And I think, you know, you've got to remember at this time, other than tape trading, a lot of people had no way of knowing what these records would sound like. We're spoilt now in this day and age. If you are unsure on something, or you've heard a band and you don't know whether to spend £20 or so on the record, you can go onto Apple, you go onto Spotify, even YouTube. YouTube has full albums, you know, everywhere now. And you can listen and you can check it out and go, yeah, these guys are cool. I think I'll get the record, or I love this, or no, don't like it, not for me. Whereas back then, people didn't have that accessibility unless you were a tape trader and your friend had this record, or he could, you know, put it onto tape. Or he could lend you it, and you could take this back with you and put it on for a couple of days and play the hell out of it. So when your mate got it back, it didn't play at all because you played it non-stop for 48 hours. You'd worn your stylus out, your record player was smoking. But other than that, you know, people didn't really have much option to hear it. That is going to draw you in, though. You know, if you're going through records and then suddenly Iron Maiden and then this evil looking thing with Eddie pops out, you're probably going to buy it because it's going to intrigue you. But I think, yeah, I think it's still a strong album, and And I don't think it's a bad album. I just don't think it compares quite as much to Iron Maiden. The sound of this pressing, let's come on to that as well. Brand new, so there's no background noise, there's no crackles, there's no pops, anything like that, it doesn't jump. Dynamic wise, the soundstage isn't as big, it isn't as there as on Iron Maiden. That was huge separation on the instruments. You know, it felt like they were dotted around you. As they played, you could pick out where everybody was if you shut your eyes, where they were in the room almost. Not so much on this one. I think it's a bit quieter as well. The dynamics don't punch through quite as much as on the self-titled. I think I was spoilt with that one. It shows the importance of doing your research as well. I don't think it's a flat. I don't think it's a digital pressing as such. Still analog, you can hear that. But yeah, I don't think it pushes through as much. It doesn't leap out from the speakers. Which is a shame, because I think, I always say this with every record, but I think this type of music deserves it. I want to hear Dave Murray, and I want to hear Adrian Smith bursting through. I want to hear that rumble sitting underneath from Steve Harris, who is one of the most exceptionally amazing songwriter and bass players that the world of metal has seen. His bass lines, as I say, on Wrathchild, you hear it sitting underneath. And it's so nice a riff on that guitar, that bass guitar. The little pockets he does on the bass, the little fills that he does on the bass. You know, I want to hear those a little bit more. You can hear a little bit of separation, but not as much as on the self-titled. But it's definitely not disappointing. I didn't put this on and go, oh, you know, because there's big expectations. If you've, you know, the first Iron Maiden record you picked up and it sounds incredible dynamically and like I say, big sound stage and crystal clear, you have that expectation going forward. Now, yes, different pressings are going to sound different, obviously, but it kind of sets you up, and then when it sits a little bit further down, you're like, oh man. But as I say, I'm not disappointed at all. I still think it sounds good. I kind of wish I'd heard Killers and then gone on to Iron Maiden, because it would have been that step up where I would have gone, wow, you know, and the strength of songs, I think. But, you know, if you're going to argue it, I'm glad Iron Maiden, the self-titled, is the better sounding one than Killers, because I think the strength of the songs is better, and you've got that raw, punchy, gritty sound coming through the speakers more, which I really like. You know, I like that dirtier sound. So overall, pretty happy with this one. I think it should be a staple of your record collection. If you're a metal fan, you should definitely have this one. I understand why it may be not the first choice of yours. You know, I would say if you're looking to get into Iron Maiden and you're kind of new to metal or new to Maiden, I wouldn't get this one first. I'd maybe start with like a Bruce era record, like Number of the Beast or Power Slave or Peace of Mind, any of those, or even, you know, even more modern stuff like Brave New World, anything like that. But I think you should still pick this up, because it is an important piece of a band's history. It's a band coming into their sound of which they are now, which is super important. I think, you know, you need to still hear this to understand the development and where it began and sort of evolved into the Iron Maiden sound that we know now, with the dueling harmonies and the gallop on the drums and on the bass guitar. But there we have it. Killers. It's a killer, literally. I had to get that in there, I'm sorry. I waited the whole time before I got that one in there. Iron Maiden and Eddie. Eddie's going to get you if you don't buy this. He told me, I think. Iron Maiden, Killers, second record by Iron Maiden. Of course, the next one is history after this. Number of the Beast followed this. We all know about that bad boy. But go and pick it up. Great record. Thank you all again for watching. Don't forget, go and hit subscribe. Let's build this channel up. Go and smash the like button. Hit the bell for all notifications. Once again, I'll be back with more vinyl, with more download memories, plenty more. Got some more interviews lined up for you guys. As always, though, Eddie knows. Go and buy vinyl. Go and listen to vinyl. Stay metal. I'll catch you soon.